Hello, everyone. Welcome back to MI for Change. I'm your host, Dr. Monica Gilbert. And if you are new to this podcast, we are going to be speaking about how to transform not only your communication with others, but also your relationship, whether you are a therapist that's in the field of behavior analysis or psychology, or you're a mom that just wants to speak more effectively with her son or daughter, or you're just someone coming in to learn how to speak more effectively, MI is always going to be for you. So let's get started. Today, we're going to talk about advanced skills in motivational interviewing, those skills that people rarely speak and teach about. And I know that if you are in this episode, and maybe if you don't know about the oars in the spirit of MI, you should check out my previous episodes. You can learn a little bit more about that. But and I'm probably going to say something a little controversial now, but if you are just using motivational interviewing without strategic motivational interviewing, then you're just having polite, nice conversations with others. You're building rapport, which is what we want to see, but you're not really doing anything else. And what we want to be is intentional with our communication. So it's not just about having great communication, but we want this communication to be intentional. And when I say intentional, is that there is a certain strategy behind it. As healthcare clinicians, we want to help the client move towards that change. If they are using substances and the substances or that use of substances is getting in the way of their life, we want to help them with that. They're coming to us for a reason. So, how do we help them without pushing them, without reverting them the other way, which is what we don't want to do? How do we do it in a way that respects their autonomy, in a way that is kind, but also in a way that is strategic? So, today we are going to be speaking about that. Now, we all know that reflections are used in order to repeat or rephrase what someone is saying. And if you're using reflections in that way, you are on to a good start. Reflections have more depth to them. There are actually seven different types or levels of reflections that we are going to go over today. Because again, level one is probably what you've been hearing about, what you've been studying about, what you've been doing, which is repeating exactly what someone says. So, for example, if someone says something like, I'm exhausted, you would repeat or rephrase that by saying, you're really tired, or things around you are making you feel exhausted. So that is a simple reflection. That is level one reflection. We are repeating what the person is saying, and sure, they feel understood, they feel heard, and that is a core to communication. Now, if we want to go a step further, we would go into level two, which is rephrasing. So here we are rephrasing what the person is saying. And when we think about that intentional piece, we have to go back to what is our goal in this conversation? Are we helping them move towards that contemplation? Are we helping them move towards that action phase? Like, what is our goal? Where are we going here? And when we are rephrasing, what we are doing is that there's a slight changing of words, but we're still keeping the same feeling. So, really the purpose is to clarify the content, and you want to make sure that you're still cognitive and not really emotional, if that makes sense. You're not really hinting so much on the emotion, but it's more about what are they trying to tell me, what is under that waterline. There's a metaphor that we use a lot in MI, which is look beneath that waterline. There's a waterline, and superficially, it's what we see, it's what we hear. But there are oftentimes things that are deeper. We have to, like a deep diver, go in there and check it out and see what's under there. So let's say your client said something like, I don't have time for therapy. Well, a reflection with rephrasing would sound something like, your schedule feels completely packed. And this is also an amplified reflection because you were able to see how I use that going to the far right where I'm saying something like completely packed. So I'm exaggerating. I'm using a little bit of exaggeration because I want the person to say, well, I wouldn't say completely packed. I have some pockets where I guess I could have therapy, but I don't know. I don't know if it's going to work. So even though they ended up with that, when they say I have some pockets, that allows for more of this flexible thinking and more openness to that change. But this is still surface level. So, as I mentioned, repeating and rephrasing, they're a little bit still on the surface. We haven't done the deep diving yet. Now, level three is paraphrasing, and this is when we start to get some meaning. So, what this does when you are using reflections to paraphrase is that you are capturing the meaning, not just the word. And this takes a lot of sit back and think. We can't really think on our toes, as they say. I'm one of those therapists that I like to think on my toes. I am impulsive, I will admit it. But if I'm doing this correctly, I have to take a breath and perhaps be a little bit more mindful during this level of the reflection. So when we are paraphrasing, you are showing understanding beyond the facts. Let's say the client says something like, I've tried everything and nothing works. A reflection with paraphrasing would sound something like, you're starting to feel discouraged and worn down. So here we are really getting that meaning. We're not just saying you're exhausted and that's it. We are saying you're starting to feel discouraged and worn down. Here, the client feels like they're touching their emotions a little bit more. Like, you know what, this person is getting me. Not only are they listening to me, they're hearing me, but they're also getting my emotion. They're understanding where what I'm feeling. So that is what the paraphrasing accomplishes. That's level 3. Level 4 are complex reflections, and these are feelings plus meaning. So, what this does is that it adds emotional depth or implied meaning. And I know that people get a little, I don't know if it's awkward, they just feel a little weird implying some meanings. Whenever I do conferences, whenever I go to speak in conferences, I always get the question of, well, aren't we inserting or aren't we projecting what we feel into that other person if we are hypothesizing what they're saying? And they're right. You might be. I think that being a clinician and being in this field, you already have that skill where you are able to infer pretty correctly. I would say, like, let's give it a number, maybe like an 80% correct. So you're probably able to infer better than other people. So think about that first. The second part of this is, if you are wrong, that's also okay. There's nothing wrong with inferring something or reflecting back something that you think is implied, an implied meaning, and then being wrong about it. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually good because this is something that you're thinking. And when the client gives you feedback and says, wait a minute, that's not what I meant, that's not what I was truly saying, then you are able to think differently about it. You're able to know, okay, then maybe I should tweak this a little bit, or you can even ask the client, help me understand it a little better. That way you are both on the same wavelength. So going back to the level 4, which is complex reflections, um, you, this helps clients feel understood, not just heard. Again, we are implying the meaning of their words. The client may say something like, they keep telling me what to do with my child. You would respond with, it feels frustrating and maybe even disrespectful, like your voice isn't being valued. Guess what? When you tell the client this often lowers their resistance automatically. Automatically it lowers their defensiveness, and they see and acknowledge that you're on their team. You are not only hearing them, you are not only listening to their words, but now you're interpreting what they're saying, the implied meaning behind it, and you're putting it into your own words and you're giving it back to them. So that is a level 4. Level 5 are double sided reflections. I love amplified reflections, but I love double sided reflections even more. So, what double sided reflections do is that they hold ambivalence together. They hold ambivalence, both sustain and change talk. And this really normalizes the conflict that the person is feeling because you are highlighting both sides, and you're normalizing it and telling them it's okay to feel both of these in the same way, in the same time, without really pushing them towards one way or the other. The client might say something like, I know consistency matters, but I'm exhausted. You may say something like, on one hand, you are completely depleted. And on another hand, you have seen that consistency really changes behaviors. Hmm. And when I use double sided reflections, I like ending with that phrase towards change. So I didn't say something like, on one hand, you really believe structure helps your child. And on the other hand, you're completely depleted. So I didn't do that, which even if you do that, that's fine. But I started with, you're completely depleted on one hand. And on the other hand, consistency is important, or you have seen that structure with your child really matters. So you see the difference? And this is where movement really starts. This is when we start seeing movement in the conversation. You will start seeing more change talk phrases from the client, and it will feel more like that dance. Like now we're getting to that dance together. This is level 5. Now, level 6 is the strategic hypothesis testing reflection. And what this is a gentle interpretation that names values, it names fears or motivations that the client hasn't fully said. So, again, here we are hearing, we are listening, we are interpreting, and now we are also providing that hypothesis testing to that reflection. So, what this does is that it evokes insight and change talk. So, you want to make sure that what you are saying doesn't sound like a very rough declarative statement or argument. You want it to be a little tentative. And the way that you can modulate that is all in your tone. So, for example, if I say something like, consistency is important versus, hmm, consistency is important. You see the difference there? So you are not pushing this on the client. You're kind of like, hmm. It's sort of like a question. You're not posing as a question, but in your mind or the undertone behind it is sort of like this question that comes out as a statement. Let's say the client says something like, I don't want to start something I can't keep up with. You would reflect by saying, you care deeply about it not failing your child, and starting feels risky because you want to do it right. Let me say that again because I stumbled a little bit and I wanted to come out clear. It was a beautiful sentence. You care deeply about not failing your child, and starting feels risky because you want to do it right. So you see how that can kind of push towards, yeah, I want to do it right. I want to make sure I'm not failing my child. I know how detrimental it can be if I don't do it right. So here we are actually using strategy. We're no longer just reflecting to build rapport or reflecting to just reflect. How do you get good at this stuff? Well, you get good at it by having a consultant, consulting with someone who really knows about MI. You also get good at this by using it with others, by actually starting to use it. And really by having maybe a colleague or someone that you can practice with. MI is like learning a new language. You can learn a new language, but if you don't practice it, if you don't have someone that you can use it with on a daily basis, you will not only get better at using the language, but you'll also forget. So I've been using or trying to learn French. I'm native to, well, my first language was French because my dad is from Madagascar. And now, as a grown adult, I want to go back and learn French. I knew it before, but because I haven't really practiced it, it's impossible to just remember some of the words or even have a fluent conversation. So I've learned in that, which is very similar to MI, that it's not just getting the app and going back to the books and learning the basics of French, which is a newer language to me, but it's also having sessions where I can practice with someone else. It's also having a tutor, which my tutor and I, all we do is just we meet and we speak in French and she gives me feedback. She says, "Well, say it like this or say it like that." And then after that is using it in the real world, right? So trying to find friends who are also learning French or speaking with my family in Madagascar in French and actually doing it so I feel comfortable. MI is no different than that. And if this is a complete different concept for you, then you're really learning a new language. And again, the basics are the books, the trainings, the webinars, but then practicing with someone who is really fluent in using MI is important. And then having the courage, because it does take courage to go out there. And even if you're going to not use these skills the right way the first time, just really going out there and starting to use them. All of those steps are important to becoming more fluent in MI. I hope, as always, that you found value in this session. Leave me a comment. Let me know how it went. And also let me know if you would like for me to dive deeper into other concepts in motivational interviewing. Hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for joining me on today's episode of MI for Change. If you're ready to keep growing your motivational interviewing skills, I'd love to invite you to explore my MI Academy, where you'll find a full library of on-demand courses designed to help you put MI into practice with confidence. You can learn more at www.drmonicagilbert.com.